Hello, YouTube family. I am terribly excited today to bring you an episode unlike any we've had before on our podcast. And I'm actually posting it on the main channel because everyone needs to see this. A story about a trader who's turned $2,000 into 10 million. He lays out every step he took to get there. And I even asked the question, hey, if you were to do this again, how would you do it? And he lays out another roadmap if he were to start right now, right this second, how he would turn $2,000 to 10 million. Yes, he took a lot of risk, but it's a fascinating story and I think there's a lot to learn from it. I hope you enjoy this episode. Before we begin, remember, if you like this podcast and you want more episodes like this, subscribe to my podcast channel. We're posting a whole bunch of episodes with all sorts of successful people. There'll be a link to that in the description below. And without further ado, let's start. Market meditators, welcome to another episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Today we have a guest from crypto Twitter on Spider Crypto. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here on Market Meditations. Love this podcast and really excited to just chat more.
Well, I'm flattered. I'm at the point where the guests come on and have pre-heard of the podcast and are a fan. So thanks I'm really flattered that you enjoy it. And I think you're going to deliver a lot of value to the audience. And this is going to be a terrific episode. For those who don't know you, give us a bit of background, a little bit of an introduction.
So I've been around in crypto since 2017, I've done this 2 times. I started with like around $2,000 to like $3,000. And I was able to turn it into $1 million over the course of like 6 months. This time I came back in August 2020, and I decided that I wasn't just going to be someone on a sideline and not become an influencer. So I spun up this name, Spider Crypto, and I took it all again. I basically took the lessons I learned from 2017 and applied them to like my trading mechanics, and I was able to turn $2,000 into $2 million in like around 2 months, and then from there I was able to multiply that about 5 times. And so effectively in the last 6 months, I've turned $2,000 into $10 million in the last 6 months. And it sounds like it's really good, but keep in mind when I hit that $2 million point, Ethereum was at like $350. So even if I just had held Ethereum, I barely outtraded the pace of my portfolio growth with Ethereum. If I had just held I think at that time I had 4,500 ETH. And if you take that into USD right now, it's like around $7 million. So I'm just barely eclipsing that right now.
Well, Spider, that is a hell of an intro. I think anyone listening is going to be extremely interested. Naturally, a bunch of questions come up. So you've made over $10 million in crypto over the course of 12 months cumulatively?
I would say, actually, that hasn't even been a whole year yet. It's only been about 6.5 months.
Wow, that is pretty mind-blowing. Do you attribute that to skill or luck?
I mean, it's always going to be a little bit of luck, but I actually, I play a different game when it comes to trading crypto. I told myself too, I feel like influencers, such as yourself, for example, I've always known that you guys have a lot of power in the market and say, and even if it's not at the scale that some people imagine, where it's like you guys can't change a coin up like 30%, 50%. Eventually, the coin has to have a strong enough narrative in order to carry itself, right? And you guys just give the initial audience to it. It allows it to spread through word of mouth. Like I realized really quickly when I started trading, even like in 2018, that I want to build good relationships with people. So back in 2017, I remembered I was doing research reports for some influencers at times, and I was just like seeing from the back end, like, I met, I'm not supposed to say this, but I know Michael on a personal level or anything, but I remember like we ran this VC called Torque.vc and Box Mining and Superman, etc. Like they would be looking for research reports from our firm, Torque at the time. They're disbanded now, the Torque VC. And we would write research reports to them, and they check out the actual like coins log, because then there's a nice sophisticated format to it. It's not just like a random shilling; it looks sophisticated. And influencers usually don't have a lot of time to look at a bunch of coins. So if you give them a good one that has a low market cap and has good reasons, and they could send this report to their friends, it spreads like wildfire. And then next thing you know, you have like 5 or 6 people shooting out this token that you were just talking about that they had done analysis on. And that's how I turned my 2K into 10K the first time, because I found this coin called Parsec. And I was looking at the company, I just released on Uniswap with like 100K liquidity or something like that. And it was at like 2 cents or like a penny at that time. Now Parsec's actually at $2. So that's even crazy to think about. And I still truly believe that that's going to be $1 billion project down the road. But um, I had basically just like written a report for people, and then as I like weave my way through just like the early crypto phases, I had started joining these like DAO groups like Karma DAO, Duck DAO, Money Party. Like basically within crypto right now, people have moved away from private groups, and they you could buy into these like groups where a lot of the old school 2017, 2018 people are. If you just buy this token for like $1,000, and then you get access into those rooms. So it was really easy to get my name out there into those places, and then I start sending my reports there, and then that helped me build my initial portfolio, which I then found like other strategies for finding gems. Um, Actually, and then that's also another thing too. Like I learned some tricks from 2017 about how to read smart contracts or how to verify whenever a new like smart contract was listed on the web. You can actually just do this through Etherscan, and if you just look to a verified contract, you can find projects early before they actually list on Uniswap. Because then people, create the code for their product, and then they'd release it on Uniswap and Telegram because you have to create the token first, right? And
Yeah.
there's just very interesting ways that you can go about this. I eventually created other tools, and other people also caught onto this game because they would like copy what I did or do, and I chat about it inside like the chat rooms. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people. I don't know if this is actually very common knowledge. Like I feel like a lot of like the good crypto traders are already in chat rooms like 24/7, but I think the majority of the audience just trades without touching those chat rooms, and I think that's such a missed opportunity. So much information flows through these chat rooms before they eventually hit Twitter, and it's hilarious actually.
It's actually one of the things which most changed my trading. About early 2020, mid 2020, I spoke to a few people who told me exactly that. Hey, stop trading just the charts. There's too much narrative and fundamental type information out there, which you can get from networking, which you can get through looking at multiple different news sources. And as soon as I did that, it's like the hit rates went through the roof. My discretion actually started to matter, and you get access to information that can give you opportunities no chart trading system can. Uh, and you touched upon on-chain analytics, so underlooked right now. We had Crypto Messiah on the podcast the other day. He's talking about one of his most successful trading strategies is finding the biggest holders of projects that have done really well on Uniswap and then following their wallet to see what else they own. Like it's so simple, but no one does that.
Yeah, I agree. And sometimes you get lucky, right? Like you find 0xB1 buying into X coin, and then other people FOMO into that, and it's because I mean it's just perpetuating the fact that we're very much in crypto where people do a monkey see monkey do type of thing because there's just such a lack of knowledge, and it's actually hilarious how little people read into a project. I know more now. Like when I've launched a project, I recently helped launch Vesper Finance as an advisor, VSPR.finance, and like we made all this documentation, and it's funny because we get to see the click through, and it's still like in like the thousands, right? You would
Yeah.
think that even though you've had over like 10,000 transactions or more through your network, or even hundreds of thousands of transactions, right? That you would have like at least 10,000 click throughs, but nope. Most of the people don't read, and that's a big thing. They just follow what they see on Twitter. They follow what they see other big wallets are doing, and it's funny how that strategy ends up working out. Just because eventually it's just that big. It's that you see like this $100 million wallet buy this coin, and then next thing you know, it's actually Three Arrows Capital saying, "Hey, we just bought into Woo Trade or something like that, right?" And then people are like, "Oh my gosh, Three Arrows Capital's in it. They're really successful. I think I should follow them in," right? Just like a celebrity, right? And it's funny because like in crypto, celebrities don't have a really good stigma of knowing what they're doing. So like I feel like right now in this current state and age, until we have like successful celebrities inside this trading market, like that's not going to be a really good strategy. But like Masai's saying, like we all have this thing. Like there are ways to track multiple wallets. There's applications that help out with that. The most particular one that I use is Nansen, and I use that one a lot for because they create like a list for you, and then you could just follow like, okay, he's selling now, I'm gonna sell now too, right? And you need to do this because like on Uniswap in particular, there is just so much data that you can find through on-chain analytics versus like trading on Binance, like or a centralized exchange. You're not going to be able to know like you're going to be able to see in the order books that, oh my gosh, this guy just put up $1 million worth of FX token, and you're not going to know who it is, but you're going to see the limit order. Whereas on Uniswap, you can actually go through and see, oh wow, someone just sold like 100 ETH worth of X token, right? Let's say Meta, like because that's like a token that Messiah holds, and then you're gonna track that wallet. Oh, geez, he still has about $500 million left of selling. You know what? I'm gonna sell out too before he sells out, right? And that's kind of like the cascade effect that happens a lot. Like, and it's even funny because I think that's how like a lot of people found out that I've actually turned so much money, like so little money, into a lot, because they could track my wallet, right? And
Yeah.
it got me the spotlight in the first place, because then people are like, dude, this guy right here, he's turned 2K into 2 million. Who is this guy, right? And people start asking around, and then I think in October, that's how people even knew, like people were trying to speculate who that wallet was, and I played around with them, and had fun with them, and would tell them like, oh, it's this person I know. I don't know who he is, but at the end of the day, it would end up that I was just shilling a token, and then I bought it, and they're like, oh, that's Spider Crypto's wallet, right? And
Yeah.
they start tracking me, and they've watched my growth from there, turning 2K to 2 million to 5 mil, and I've actually moved some money off of Uniswap just because I was like, I'm so tired of playing this, and actually, it's funny because even now, like people that have been following me since I've had like 1,000 followers, they know my wallet, right? It's so easy to track it, and I think they copy trade me a lot. So like I leave a wallet that's public that I allow people to copy trade me, and then I have another wallet on the side that those tokens, because I know as soon as I buy on my real wallet, they're gonna like, I don't know, did Messi talk about that by chance? Did he ever talk about how he might have like two wallets, and how like that dynamic works on Uniswap, where it's like as soon as he buys it, other people like FOMO in and they buy with you, and
He
it ends up moving the price like 30 or 40%, because that's just how Uniswap works.
he did not talk about that dynamic, but I absolutely not surprised that there is. I'm pretty sure there are tweet sentiment. No, I'm not pretty sure. I know there are tweet sentiment bots where whenever certain accounts with enough engagement tweet about any coin whatsoever, they will instantly ape in. So on-chain analytics one's a little bit more complicated, but I'm sure they're going to get more and more sophisticated and saturated. I to circle back to something you said, which was really interesting, was the comment on transparency. The fact that there's a herd mentality and people just ape into whatever coin they think is popular without reading or learning about it. DeFi doesn't actually solve that. That's one of the biggest issues with the previous banking crises and crashes. It's that people don't understand what they're investing in or what they're doing. They just follow what other people do. DeFi doesn't actually solve that. What DeFi solves is that you're transparent now. So you can see what's going on. You have the option to do that. And it's interesting to see whether or not people actually use that power and transparency they're giving. Even though it's creating a fairer system, you can still mislead and manipulate people into believing your product is whatever you want them to believe.
Yeah, and I think that like that's actually something that people have been talking about with these layer twos, and it's gonna be a very key trend to 2021. Like this, the whole entire layer twos and privacy. Like people are still trying to find ways to execute about that properly, right? Like, yeah, I really I hate it. I love it at the same time, but I wonder. I think most of the funds or wallets that have over like $10 million, like they would prefer to have privacy over having transparency inside their wallets. So
I
I'm
mean, you
really
are
curious.
I
Yeah.
mean, you are one of those guys, and I'm definitely going to continue talking about. I mean, I've had a lot prepared, but I didn't actually know you've changed 2K into 10 mil. I knew you were hugely successful, but that sort of change is unheard of. It's absolutely insane, and you've dived into your strategies quite specifically. It seems to be primarily revolved around finding hidden gems. Was this what propelled your initial growth, or was this the entirety of the growth, just finding the right gems again and again?
Um, I would say like for that growth from 2K to 2 mil, that was definitely through gems. Eventually, that hit like a low side because it's like there's only so much you could find on Uniswap, right? And then it's just being on top of like whichever projects were gonna launch, just because you had like good connections or you had good bots out there to basically find those products. Uh, and then eventually, I ended up like I would say most of the gains in the recent couple months have been picking the right projects, the right owners, the right CEOs that are constantly building the right things. So um, I think okay. So let's start with the whole entire story, right? Like 2K into 10 into 2 mil started basically off of my first trade was Parsec. I turned 2K into 10K, and then from there, I just kind of like played momentum trades. So it's like whatever was hot in the moment, like Urine Finance would be hot. There'll be a lot of Urine Finance clones. I'll just play any Urine Finance clone. And then Sushi came out, and then there's a whole bunch of like Sushi clones. I paid that momentum on that. Then I got really lucky. I threw in like 50K into Core, which was like my biggest trade of all time, where I basically threw 50K into that and walked away with like 2 mils. So that carried my portfolio a lot. Then I lost a bit because you had to give back the crash in November, I believe, like end of October, November, where a lot of coins for especially in the DeFi market, like Urine Finance even hit $7,000 at that point. Keep in mind, so a lot of those coins just bottomed out hard, and so I
Can
went.
I ask how much the drawdown was?
The drawdown was about like a million, I would say. Like,
Wow.
and
Oof.
I did get lucky because I tethered away $1 million, so I was just kind of lucky. And then the market picked up a lot. Like Sushi went from like 70 cents all the way but back up to like where it is today, like above $10, right? So I was able to play some of those momentums. Like I said, I didn't have like the same conviction with some of these trades, so like I'd ride them up for like maybe. And like people keep thinking too, like I'm not the type of trader that would ever trade my whole portfolio into any token, no matter what. So what ended up happening was, I threw a couple hundred K into Sushi. I threw a couple hundred K into like a Rari governance token or Farm or Saffron Finance. And I just kept on like doing small trades like that. Eventually, I hit like 2 million again. I took that other million. I was like, you know what? I don't want to trade this all on Uniswap because the volatility here is very different versus like the volatility in exchanges. And the nice thing about trading on exchanges too is that you get to move your portfolio into USDT as soon as you're done with that trade, right? Especially you're trading futures, which I was. So I think like during around November to December, and actually yeah, November, December, January, like I turned that million on Binance, and I into like another million. Then I moved like 500K to Coinbase, and then like I just started buying random spot positions in some tokens that I believed in, like 0x for example, or like Kyber Network, and these were just like astronomical months. Like they're all up like
Mm.
3 to 4x like their original prices. So like it was really easy to kind of turn those into a lot more. I recently gave back a lot on my Binance account, and my Coinbase account is the one that's kind of carrying me at the moment. And I mean, it's just like the danger of trading futures. I realized that I'm gonna slow down on that because also it's just a lot of hawking on your computer. Like you're literally, you feel like you cannot leave. Like your soul is attached to your computer when you do a margin trade versus these spot holdings. And I'm good. I'm moving to a phase of like building more. So I'm slowing down a lot. And so yeah, I feel gem finding was great. It helped me a lot early on. Eventually, the upside net gets limited. I still play a lot of those listings, but I wait for them to I consolidate because my bot never wins the front running wars, and I blame that just because my network and internet is not good. I mean, I know how to create a front running bot, and I actually have people that have made me some, but I just don't win. Every single time I tried, my transactions just don't go through. So I just like, okay, whatever. I'm just gonna play listings, and it's funny. Like people think that I'm an amazing chart reader. I'm not. Like I literally just trade purely off fundamentals, and then I basically asked my friends, "Hey, look at the chart for this." And to them, they're like, "Oh, why are you looking at that?" And I'll be like, "Here's the fundamental," and they'll be like, "You know what? This chart looks pretty good." And so we cross collaborate, and that's why it's really nice to have friends like Nico's because like he's really good at reading charts, and I just have to show him on why the tokens can do well fundamentally. So
Yeah, well, I would say the reason you have to know your strengths and you have to know your weaknesses. I am similarly to Nikos. Much prefer the charts. I've got a mathematical background. I can run numbers. I can look at the price data. But when it comes to the fundamentals, I know people are way better than me, so I get a research team behind me to help me out. The second I want a project vetted, I know these are the guys to do it. They can look through it. They can tell me what I need to know, and it's what it takes. Like know your strengths and weaknesses, and then leverage other people and work together, and you win even harder than you would have solo or individually. And that also bringing it back to what you said, it sounds like your journey leverage your strength of fundamentals. You started with the gems to build your base fund, and then once you had that base fund, you were a little bit more spread with your bets, and you went for momentum plays to grow where you could. You took some heavy drawdowns along the way. Um, Now, what if you had to start all over right now in these market conditions? What would you do? Would you go straight back to trying to find gems? Would you look for momentum plays? How would you play it?
Let me think about that for a second. Well, if I were to start all over with just like $2,000 again, I'd definitely be on Uniswap more than I would be on like margin trading because I would hate to get liquidated. Like,
Assume you had no network either, as well, Spider. Assume you literally have no connections in the space, no friends, and you have to start all over.
yeah, I would definitely start on Uniswap or any of these decks, whichever dex is popular. I try to find so where's right now the market's pretty down, right? I would definitely try to find out which coins are undervalued and have like had a massive draw out. Uh, then I'd probably look at the wallets to see who's the biggest holder and like see what upside I have. I'd probably be on Binance Smart Chain if I could be real. If I had only $2,000 or $5,000, I'd definitely be on Binance Smart Chain, and I would be playing the listings, and I'd be sniping whatever contract gets verified on Binance Smart Chain and trying to find tokens as they list. Um, and I'd be playing those listings just because they're not as bot heavy, and I try to find BSC specific groups to find out which coins are hot. And I diversify into the different coins on there because that's where a lot of like that's where I'd be able to have like the 2x, 3x multiples on the small amount of money at the moment. So if I was to do a 2K challenge and not talk to any influencers or create any research reports and show them why this coin's going to be good, and I'd try my best to communicate to those developers on those like platforms. Like I'd probably be on Telegram asking a lot of questions
Mm-hmm.
to those developers and being like, well, what are you guys trying to do? What's your long term plan? Just so they don't rug me, right? There's a lot of rugs that go on. And for
Yeah.
people that don't know, rug pull basically just means that like they take you buy their token and then they pull the liquidity that is used to trade it. So and then they run away with the money that you basically had at their platform. So it happens a lot. I've had over 100+ rug pulls on my lifetime. So
Wow.
it's hilarious. I think that alone also probably lowered my portfolio a decent amount. The fact that I have over, it's funny. Like you would think that each rug pull that happens is only like one ether or something like that, but no, 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 no. Like on the high end, I've lost over 50 ether, and on the low end, I've
Oh,
lost like 5 ether. So like I think over that span of 100 rug pulls plus, I think I've lost maybe like around 500 to even like 600 ether, which is ridiculous.
I mean, it's important. No, not even important. It should be assumed by anyone who sees these sorts of returns that to some degree an equivalent amount of risk is going to be associated with them. So naturally, you're going to go through a lot of crap and risky scams in order to get to those gems that could potentially to 3x your portfolio. And you mentioned a few things there. Specifically, I noticed you said sniping. You tried to snipe some listings. What do you mean by snipe some listings?
So I like even though there are sometimes bots, right? Like they don't pay attention to like these lower tier projects sometimes that are like they're just clearly clones of more successful projects that have been out there, and so they're essentially just like a fork, right? And sometimes people get behind these forks. So, um, like what I would try to do is like I like use like 400 or 500 Wii or something like that, and I try to front run everyone and get my transaction before they do. Uh, and like I don't care about the gas fees, because I know that my ROI on my trade could be like 2 or 3x, right? This is very, very, very common on Uniswap, like
Mm-hmm.
or even Binance Smart Chain. Like, let's say you're in the first like 20 or 30 buyers into the product, right? Like one of the indicators that I know a lot of people do on Uniswap or Binance Smart Chain is they look at the amount of holders they have, and you could use tools like Dex tools or Astro tools to look at the amount of token holders that they have. I highly suggest using these because in like the game for Uniswap and um, buying smart chain is just completely different, right? Like the fact that I can go on Dex tools and I can see the last transaction and see the person's wallet who did that transaction is just completely different compared to like I said, Binance or FTX when you trade on those more centralized platforms. You can see which wallet has just sent that outflow of money. And so, yeah, and then not only that, you can click into it and then click into like what the token itself, and you can see the amount of holders. And if I'm in the first 30 holders, I would say that's a successful snipe, right?
Yeah.
depending on like if the platform is actually good or not. Like it's hard because I feel like I can't really guide people very well on which like ones are fundamentally going to do it. I feel like it's just experience from trading on Uniswap and buying Smart Chain a lot, right? And having been through months and months of agitating pain of getting rug pulled and like understanding which ones people tend to buy more, right? Like I look at the website and I can already tell like when I look, I think Masai actually had like a blurb on this on like on Twitter. He said that, "Will it make me rich? How's it gonna make money? What's like the and what is the website easy to understand? If it doesn't hit those like um kind of mechanics for him, he's not going to buy it, right? It has to be so easy that he could just breeze through it for like a minute and it's good, like a resume. I look at projects a lot like resumes, and when I'm like, if I'm like hiring people too, it's just like, okay, if I can go through this in a minute and spend less than a minute on it and then get the gist of it and understand what's going on, higher chance I buy into that versus like something that's just all over the place with a bunch of random things. You would have to sell me really quickly that the team is good based on their background and their public, and not all like and on Uniswap and buy a smart chain, like 80% to 90% of projects are anonymous, right? Like you don't know who the hell the developers are. You just know they launched walnut.finance or narwhales.finance or something like that. And you're just like trading these coins because they have like really good what quote unquote Ponzi-nomics or good token economics. And you're just trusting that the developer will become something. And sometimes you get lucky. You get to chat with the actual developers. Like you get to go on a Telegram and have conversations with them. And then from there, you're able to trust them. So yeah.
Spider, I'm now seeing exactly why so many of my friends speak extremely highly of you. We've had a lot of people on the podcast who've turned very small sums of money into very large ones. But this is probably one of the best examples of a situation where I probably bet that you could do it again. Because you seem to have a clear, thought out strategy. You didn't. You said I'm not really guiding the users, but you've given more guidance than people normally get. Like way more. You've told them exactly what to do. These are the types of projects I target. How do I find out about them? Well, I look at the reports like a resume. I try to chat to the team. I try to get into chat rooms for those who are able to do it. You also try to network with the right influencers so you know what sort of influence they'll have on the market. And that's not even just crypto anymore. I mean, I think Austin Reef, the founder of Morning Brew, did a tweet on this, and there's this new age of influencer investors coming through. The two biggest in the world being Chamath and Elon Musk, where if you have the influence of the people, you just have this free way to raise as much capital as you want or direct attention wherever you want. So now I think you understand the game really well, and you've left our listeners with a lot of alpha on how to identify gems, how to grow a small portfolio pretty big. And I guess my next question would be, at what point do you shift strategies? At what point does this become the lower ROI play?
Yeah, and it comes to ROI in terms of time, right? Like I realized that a lot more when I start getting into like the seven figures, like because it's just like you spend a lot of time hawking through these, and then you can actually trade of size some on these other things in these Uniswap plays and buying smart chain plays. You're very constrained to liquidity, right? Like the project itself will probably raise only $50,000 to $100,000, and those seed like maybe on if you're lucky like 50% to liquidity. And so you can imagine, right? Like, let's say I had 50K on Uniswap and I was trying to buy and snipe, quote unquote, this listing. Well, I would do like a 40% or 50% price impact on a token if I was to buy like 50K worth, which is around like 30 worth. And that is a nightmare to deal with, right? Like, and so that's the reason why like I would say I shifted my strategies more around like around seven figures to only be like in tokens I know we're building a lot. Like I got to talk to developers, or I know like VC funds. This is kind of where I got that edge too, right? Because I'm very lucky. I'm very good at networking. Like it's not like a brag or anything like that. I just fall into the right hands, the right places at the right time, and I think that's where like I would say 80% of my luck is like. I met some influencers along the way that really appreciate the skill I had in terms of like finding like gems and creating research reports for like some influencers, and then from there,
Were you doing that for free to build these relationships?
I did it completely free, and like I just prayed that they would actually talk to me
So it's not luck. That's a very smart, calculated decision and a risk because you invested your time, your efforts in with expecting nothing in return. And every useful connection I've ever made is from giving and expecting nothing back in return.
It's like a prey, right? Like, please look at my report. It's funny too. Like, this is actually a very common like e-com strategy, or when you're just going out there to local businesses and you're trying to get them to let you build their website because they don't have a website for whatever like service they or platform that they have. I would say this is like more like retail stores, like actual jewelry stores. Like, I remember I was doing like web development at one time, and I would go out to them and be like, "Oh, you know what? Let me make this website for you first, and then if you guys want to pay me, that would be great." And so it's kind of like the same thing where, because like after a while you start building a name for yourself, and then I mean it's so funny. Like, even right now, I have a lot of funds trying to snipe me and trying to get me to work BD for them, and I'm just like, geez, I really appreciate that because I know for a fact, like let's say I lost my whole portfolio, I could fall back on that. I'm almost
Yeah.
100% certain that I'd be like extremely valuable in that, and especially with my software development background, and able to like understand what the market likes. So I'm like really excited for like what the future holds. I'm also just happy too, like that I'm in a place where if I lost everything, I could just fall back on the fact that people trust me on, on how to choose coins, and even just how to network amongst those people.
That's the power of knowledge and reputation. Money can come and go, but your knowledge, your reputation, that can monetize forever. As long as you have people who trust with you and want to work with you, then you can absolutely grow and fall back on that. And I imagine that gives you a lot of psychological safety when trading and making investment decisions.
Yeah, it does. I feel like psychologically too, like that's another thing I think I want to cover. Like the psychology to hold a token. Like, I remember it. I found Core, and I thought at the time, Core is like that big trade I made to turn 50K into 2 mil. I was like, there are so many mental Olympics I had to go through to hold, and I don't think enough traders talk about that. To hold something from 2x to 100x, it is holy crap, man. Like, I was so sold on the future of Core, and that's why I couldn't time the top on that, right? Like, in order for you to be a maximalist on something like that, it's to your benefit sometimes, right? And I think that people underappreciate some people that are able to just be like hardcore Bitcoin is the future type of mindset. People are hardcore Ethereum is the future, because then those are the people that are going to hold Ethereum from $1 to 2,000. But you know for damn sure they're not going to sell it at $2,000, right? Because they're maximalists. And with Core, I actually had the opportunity to even make 3 million off of it because I had 300 Core tokens times at its peak price around $8,000 to $9,000, right? So if I had 350 Core tokens, I think actually. So like if I sold it at 9,000, I could have made a hell lot more. I ended up averaging around 6,000 in terms of like my sell price, like 6,000 to 5,000, like in between there.
Were you
So
just laddering out on the way up?
there's no way I could sell it like just all the way, right? I would just destroy the chart. And so like, because that's the thing, right? It's not like I could just set a sell order, a limit order at like X price. I literally have to like market sell slowly while I'm trading on Uniswap, especially with that size. And the only reason why Core to me was so attractive in the first place was because it had so much liquidity. The whole narrative behind Core was that it was a token that people locked their liquidity in forever, and they would get lifetime benefits to it. Eventually, the whole entire like coin just fell out of favor because no one cared about it. And like you basically, the way this coin was like manufactured was that you had to buy the token, provide liquidity, and you would lock it forever. And so, I mean, it attracted a lot of people at first. I don't even know. I'm actually gonna. Can you give me like 1 minute? I'm actually very curious what the liquidity is right now.
Go
I
for it.
I think Core Finance for people that are wondering. Yeah, even right now the liquidity is $50 million, right? Like, and that's why it was so nice. Like, I could at that time when I was selling out of the liquidity, it was like $30 million of liquidity, which is still incredible. Like, when you that's the only way you can really get $2 million out of something while doing only like a 10% price impact or less. Like, you're never gonna find other like tokens out there, like even the ones that are popular right now, and like they average maybe around like 5 to 10 million liquidity on like the best side, right? Like,
Wow.
so like to have that massive liquidity to exit and make these trades, it was a godsend. And I knew it's funny, right? Like I actually had 300K at the time, and I was thinking to myself, like, God, what if I had just thrown in more? Like, what would have happened, right? Like, and here's another thing to think about: people can see who the top holder is of that token. So I actually think that I put in just the right amount and let it build just the right amount, because if I had put in like like let's say 200K into core at launch, right? Then I wonder, I don't think the token would have appreciated as high as it did to hit eventually 8K or 9K dollar, like, because then people would see that the top holder has like $5 million, and it would cause people to be like, yeah, I don't want to buy this token anymore because someone has $5 million worth of tokens they could dump and do like a 30% price impact, right?
So you actually made more money by buying less of the token that pumped when you think about it that way.
Yeah, I actually think that I put in the right amount, because if I had too much, like, there's like the thing with Uniswap and the thing with like buying a smart chain, it's like you can't just put in $1 million into these trades and then expect the 2x 3x those. Like you hit a certain point where it's better to just only put in X amount, because if you put in too much, you're gonna screw over the interest inside the token, because there's a lot of traders like Crypto Messiah who will look at the wallet holders first, and then they'll judge their decision to buy into that token or not because of that, right? I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it was just I had bought just the right amount inside there to be the number one holder of that token, and the people were okay with the scaling of the liquidity and the amount of tokens I had, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, Spider. What doesn't make sense to me is I get how difficult the psychology was, but I don't get how you handled it. How you can handle such illiquid, volatile coins jumping up immense percentages of your total portfolio and having the conviction to hold and sell at the right points. How do you manage that psychology?
I was told core was the future at one point. That was going to eclipse Yearn Finance. So like I said, that there's always some dumb luck that happens to it. Like, my gosh, man, it is so hard. Like I really honestly believe core was like a game changer, and like I said, eventually I hit a point where I saw like a lot of swing traders inside the token, and I realized that the best wallet holders and the best people were not holding a token like that. And I hit a point too where I was just thinking, oh, the upside is limited now. Like, maybe core does a 2x here, but there's a whole bunch of other tokens that are definitely going to do like a 3 to 4x that have good liquidity as well. And so that's when I finally made the decision to hop off and like sell all of my core. Not just that, but I mean, there's something a little more personal. Like the developers for the product, like I saw the way they talk to the community, and they were just way too degen for me to believe in like a future. Like like they would have like meme parties or like GIF parties inside the chat room, and I was just like, what the heck are you guys doing? Like they would like um I don't even know. Like the way they talked was really arrogant, and I just thought, who would want to work with these guys, right? Like, and I, for a protocol's longevity, you need to be workable. You can't just be cocky and
Yeah.
arrogant. Like, I feel like it's so hard because like I can't really think of like, okay, they would post like uh close to like very very close to pornography on like their chat room too, right? Just very unprofessional people. So that's kind of what I was seeing, and that's why I eventually was like, nope, I'm over it. Again, I'm so over this, because like maybe if they were like Andre and like more professional, like
Yeah.
then yeah, Andre's a mixed bag as well. Like if they just had something closer, just being like eloquent with the way they talked, I would have probably stayed in that token a lot longer than I would have. So
Well, then it comes down to very strong, almost religious level tunnel vision. The way to hold with conviction for a really long amount of time. You just have to believe in it with all of your being. There's no room for doubt, because the second there's a seed of doubt, that will trickle off into a whole array of compounding negative thoughts that will make you do stupid stuff. So for the average person, how do you do that? How do you get that conviction to hold on to these coins? And do you even want that conviction if you don't have the skills to identify the right ones?
yeah, I can't really say much about that because it's hard to say, because it really depends. If for me to hold with conviction the same way I did, I'd have to be able to dialogue with the founders or like read an AMA and see how they like articulate themselves. Like so, I feel like, yeah, having that conviction is very very difficult. And
Something everyone can do, which you just made me think of, is you mentioned the founders again and again and again. Not everyone can vet a project or
yeah,
verify it's the right project, but everyone can get a gauge for another person. Like if you're a good judge of character, if you find the key traits to look for, bet on people as much as you do bet on projects and ideas.
that's what VCs do. I mean, that's the edge that VCs have over like the retail trader, right? They're able to interface with these developers and see what they've done, and even see sometimes like their MVPs or whatever product that they're able to have before they hit the market. And so I think like that's the reason why like they're able to do so well, and that's why airdrops do so well too. Because then sometimes airdrops are for protocols or projects that are really doing well in the market already, or having a high amount of users. So it's easy to translate into like X or Y token, and that token is going to help them build on that protocol even more, right?
That's
Uh,
actually what Jason Choi recommended as one of the best ways for non VCs to get an edge in the market is focus on projects that have fair airdrop distribution. The VCs don't have much of an edge there. Everyone can get the same amount just by participating in experiencing the tokens, which gets benefits in its own right. Spider, we're drawing to the end of the episode right now. So I definitely want to end it on this note. 2K to 10 mil. What's next?
yeah, I've actually I started realizing too, like I have hit that lifetime goal, and it's funny. I'm still going up and down. Like I average out like around 10 if I were to cash out everything. That's what I would tell myself. Um, and so it's funny because I hit this point in my portfolio where it's just like I have enough to do whatever I want now. And I'm actually slowing down on trading right now. I really want to get into like building this DeFi space to kind of give back. That's kind of my goal. Like I really do believe in DeFi. I don't think that trading is the best way to 10x my portfolio right here. I think that building and maybe working with VCs or working with people might be the best thing. And I also have like a VC that I work with right now called LinkPad. And like our goal right now is just to help the long term growth of these DeFi protocols. And I think that's where it's funny because I tell people too, like they ask me like, man, you should buy like a house or a car or like some new watches or something like that. And I'm like, wow, that's so funny. I don't know, it's just because I'm a nerd and I'm a gamer, and I'm like, that pertains to my my white knight personality, but I'm not really interested in all that. Like I don't get like joy like driving a Ferrari. And it's funny because my friend even bought like one of my partners for LinkPad. He actually bought like a very nice car recently, like in like 150K, and I don't even like care. Like I went inside the car, had a joyride of it, and I was just like, that's cool. Like I said, most of my goals right now are to, like, if I'm to even like, I think that I want to really give back to this DeFi community because I really believe that this is going to be a game changer what DeFi offers for the mainstream. And if I was a fintech startup, I'd really think, wow, I wouldn't want to start a fintech startup inside of traditional finance or CeFi. Like I totally do it inside of DeFi right now. So because the space right now is still very, very young, and you could judge
Yeah.
that based on the inefficiency of it. Like it's a good thing that DeFi has so much like interest, even though while there's a lot of interest, there's a lack of sufficient tooling, right? Like it's like the early days of the internet. It feels amazing to be here and have a lot of money because I feel like I could use this to build and like make connections and bridge people together. And really, I just want to leverage the fact that I did this 2K to 10 million thing to connect more projects and to link up with them, because then they'll be like, oh wow, like this trader that's like really good, he's looking at my project. That's really what I hope to use like my 10 mil for. So
That's a fantastic way to use your 10 mil, and it's amazing that you have the self awareness, security in yourself to know what you value and what you don't value. A lot of people, they know they don't care about that watch and that car, but they want it simply because they feel a social pressure or a societal pressure to have that car. We've seen a common trend where a lot of people have made 7, 8 figures in this market and they're depressed, they're sad because the money, yes, at a base level it'll help you solve a lot of issues, but on a macro level, like once you have your food, your shelter, your debts are paid off, there's only so much the money's going to do for making your life better. A lot of it has to come from inside, And I love that you have that purpose of building the space up. Personally, I'm moving a lot more towards trying to do work with cool charities. I care a lot about cancer research and wildlife
Oh yeah,
preservation.
we donated to charity recently. That's actually another thing.
Oh,
I,
yeah.
I donated like 50,000 to charity, and I plan on doing that more. Like, I'm a huge esports fan. I was actually an ex-professional gamer, and I won a national championship for the Collegiate League. I can't wait to give scholarships out to people as well. And if I could just do a quick shout out, I actually there's a guy that I would attribute like a lot to my mentor and my building. I have a mentor, and he has helped me a lot. He's the reason why I get to talk to some of these billionaires out there. And even if I didn't have crypto as a thing that I would dive into and have like a bunch of success, he's the guy that like I would say he's taught me so many things because he's taught me like he's around nine figures or something like that, doesn't care
Wow.
about anything. And I met him at an AI conference during my collegiate, like when I was doing university research. Like I remember I just approached him because I heard him talk for like 5 minutes, and I went up to him and I was just like, I really think you're extremely smart. I want to learn more from you. And we start working out, playing basketball. Dude's like 65 years old. He still outlifts me, outruns me. It's just like insane. And I think that I think that everyone should have a mentor or talk to people that are well beyond their grade and not be scared and just know down the road you're going to offer them some sort of value. And he's one of the guys that he wants to start a company with me in the next year, and I'm so blessed that he wants to do that. He's a former like C-level executive for like Pepsi and um, what's it called, FedEx. So it's just really really lucky that I met him. I can't even say anything more.
Um, I don't think you need to, Spider. What a fantastic note to end the podcast on. So much tangible advice from start to finish. This is one of the most exciting episodes we've ever had. So thank you for coming on and sharing your incredible story. Hopefully 6 months down the line, we can get you on again to see where you're at and how everything is going. On that note, Spider, thank you for joining me. Meditators, that is everything for this episode of the Market Meditations podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.